Yo, what is happening, people? So today I'm going to be addressing a video that I think is long overdue. I've recently been seeing a lot of questions on my last post as well as on Facebook forums asking which bike suits people best. The MX3, MX4 or MX5, and should you spend the extra on the MX5 over the MX4? Now, full disclosure, I am voicing this over, that's just because I've been rather sick this week, but I do have a great insight. Lots of people in the UK do come to me for all sorts of Talaria advice, seeing as I have had the Talaria since they first came out, and also modifying every single model that has sort of came since then, the MX3, MX4 and MX5. I do have a good understanding of what they come with stock, their capabilities once upgraded, as well as the prices on the used market. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the MX3, I'm going to go over the basic features of it, and then we're going to work our way up from there. So with the MX3, you do get a 60 volt 38.5 amp hour battery. This battery puts out peak power of 6 kilowatts. This is actually up over the 4.8 that you'd get on the Light B, but it's still not that powerful. The most top speed I ever had out of mine standard was 48 miles per hour GPS. Now that did take a long run downhill. Lots of people do read the speed straight off their display, which go up to 52, but they are roughly 10% out. It comes with 203mm rotors front and back. You could either get the D&M suspension front and back, or you could have got the RST killer forks. The RST killer forks are a regular fork, a bit like a downhill mountain bike fork. However, they don't come with any of the fancy damping system inside. They are very basic. There is a spring on one side, and most people found that if you put a socket on top of the spring underneath the cap, it did kind of preload that spring a bit and give you a bit more of a firmer ride without blowing through all the travel straight away. This was a great improvement on one of my friend's bikes, but the D&M forks, they tend to blow after a few months as well, so neither of these forks were a great option out of the factory, and most people do find themselves upgrading them. With this bike, I regularly saw ranges between 25 and 28 miles. The battery power was decent. If you put a torque on that bike, you can go up to about 9 kilowatts, which is a great improvement, but that sacrifices the range. I do like the MX3, that's what my bike was. The only thing left on it is the gearbox and the frame. I've never had any gearbox issues. Moving on from here, about 18 months after the Talaria MX3 came out, we got the Talaria MX4. This came with a whole host of upgrades. So, the most notable upgrade was the power. The bike now puts out 8 kilowatts peak power thanks to the new 60 volt 45 amp hour battery. This also improved the range slightly, but bearing in mind when you add more power, you also suck more of the battery life out of the battery each time you ride it. So with this battery, the range was slightly improved by about 2 miles. I saw an average of about 30 miles on a charge. This was if I was taking it easy on the trails. If I was hammering it on the road, you can expect to see a 25% decrease in that range figure. Now, with this also came new suspension. Talaria introduced the Talaria factory suspension front and rear, a derivative of the Fast Ace 1.0 forks. They came with different top caps and a slightly different graphic, but primarily they were the same makeup, and as well as that, the shock was also the same as their Fast Ace shock. It just had a new sticker on it and a new adjustment dial. Moving forward, the brake calipers and levers themselves stayed the same, but Talaria introduced a great upgrade, which was the 220mm fixed front and back rotors. We also got a new rear seat height. The seat was actually lower on the MX4, as most people on the MX3 complained about it being too much of a stink bug stance, meaning the seat sloped down towards the battery. So Talaria fought this with a new linkage design on the rear, dropping the rear back down. The only problem was that once people upgraded to a 16-inch rear wheel with a motocross tyre, they found the rear to be too low, and they had to then retrofit an MX3 linkage to their bike to bring that seat height back up. Another small feature that the MX4 came with over the MX3, and that's in part to its 220mm rotor on the rear, was the shark fin design rotor guard. Now moving on to the start of 2024, and the Talaria MX5 was released. This was the biggest change since the start of Talaria's history. We got a 72 volt battery, we got 13 kilowatts of power, which is enough for most people, and we also got proper front and back moto style suspension. The pegs on it are phenomenal. They're CNC'd pegs with proper grub inserts. The gearbox itself is the same, and the mainframe is the same, albeit has new mounts for the battery lid. The battery lid on the MX5 actually can be removed completely without having to remove any pins. It just uses a lever style design, so as you insert that lid and push it down to clip in, it locks itself in on the front as well. This is a great design, I really like that. First time in Talaria history as well, they introduced the new screen. The new screen does look like the old screen when it's off, but when you turn it on, it is actually a colour display. And the Talaria now has 3 modes, including the newest, which is Hyper. Hyper unlocks the full capability of that 72 volt 40 amp hour battery. The rotors on these MX5s are the same as the MX4, but like I said on my previous video, the levers themselves are a work of art. They look absolutely fantastic, and they have reach adjustment, which is really good. They also hold a lot more fluid than the previous 2 brakes, and you can see that by the gigantic reservoir that sits on top of the lever assembly itself. Now the forks and shock on the MX5 are new to Talaria, and as always, Talaria worked with Fast8 to generate these new products. Now the new forks do have better adjustment, they have high and low speed adjustment, and the shock just looks to be of a sturdier quality. A lot more silver on the shock compared to the old blacked out designs, which I like. The bump stop also looks to be improved. And yeah, when I was testing this bike, it did feel very, very comfortable actually. The suspension felt really good off-road. It was very capable. I didn't adjust it too much as it wasn't my bike, but I was very pleased with it. There's so much on the MX5 that you don't get on the MX4 or MX3 that would need upgrading from factory. The MX5's motor can also put up to 22 kilowatts through it. That's what we had on that 82 volt Competizione. It was pushing 22 kilowatts and it was a very, very fast bike. Now, not many people have touched on this topic, but the swing arm on the MX5 is actually a new design. It won't fit the MX4, and the rear and front hubs on that bike are different as well on the wheels. So with the rear swing arm, the new MX5 swing arm is slightly thicker, slightly stiffer. I did notice it when I tested the Competizione, and I did feel it when I was riding it. Although I would definitely say that that bike could do with a 16-inch rear wheel, whether you have the MX5 Pro or the MX5 Competizione. It just needs that sort of stance adjustment that I like to see on these bikes. Now, let's get into the price points. In today's market, in the UK anyway, you can pick up a Talaria MX3 for around £2,000 if you shop around. This is used. New, I don't even think anyone sells them new anymore, but they used to be around £3,800. So this is roughly around £600 to £700 less than Talaria MX4s. Do you get more on the MX4? Yes, I do think you should go for an MX4 over an MX3 if you can stretch to £2,700 to £2,800. There are some that I've seen for cheaper, but they do look like they need a lot of work, and if you're new to the e-bike scene, you don't really want to be buying a bike and having to work on it straight away. It kind of takes the enjoyment out of owning one. So moving up to the Talaria MX5, I've seen these go for around £4,200 to £4,800 brand new. These bikes are a great bike, and I do think they have a lot of value considering they're a 72 volt bike out of the box. Now, the battery is only a 40 amp hour battery, but because it's 72 volts, you're using less amps to make the same power as you would on a 60 volt, which makes it more efficient. The range is going to be comparable, if not slightly higher than the MX4 and quite a bit higher than the MX3. I would, out of the box, grab a Talaria MX5 if I was starting again now, but if you can stretch and your budget allows and you're from the UK, for £6,999 you can have the pre-built 82 volt Talaria Competizione boosting up to 22 kilowatts. For me, this is the perfect bike for anyone that just wants to grab a bike, ride it and forget about it. It comes with a warranty, which is good, but yeah, you just have to watch out when you're buying a used bike. There's a few things you might want to look out for. You might want to just check that the motor and the gearbox sound healthy. On the Talaria MX4s, they do become a bit noisier after time, and I have seen a few people shear the spline off the side of the gearbox. Personally, I've never done that running up to 30 kilowatts on my MX3, but it's something to look out for. Give the bike a push backwards and forwards if you can't ride it. Just listen to the noise that the gearbox makes. They are quite a noisy bike anyway, but being that they do require gearbox changes, you can have some problems in that area. Now, the motor itself on the MX4 has a lower kV rating than the MX3, so bear this in mind if you're looking to buy a bike and completely mod it out, but keep the standard motor. The MX3 motor did make higher top speed than the MX4 motor. Same goes for the MX5. The MX5 is lower kV again, although it is better resistant to heat and also can put out a peak power of 22 kilowatts versus 19 kilowatts that I've had out of an MX3 and MX4. So yeah, I hope this has helped some people make a decision on what bike they want to get. As always guys, I hope everyone had a great Christmas. Sorry I couldn't put out an actual video, it's just because I've been ill, and also I'm taking a vacation this week, so there's going to be no video next Sunday either. But make sure you smash that subscribe button if you're new around here, so go check out some of my other videos. We do upload every week, or try to anyway. But yeah, thanks for watching as always guys, and I'll see you next time.